After studying this module, you would be able to know the concept of economic reforms, liberalization as a part of economic reforms, identify the trends and issues of liberalization, assess the impact of liberalization on economic environment and development, critically evaluate the liberalization policy of India. Before 1991, India followed an approach of mixed economy for its economic development. The public sector was assigned a commanding position and was made the main instrument of achieving growth. The government retained all the industries which were vital for the economy, such as steel, coal mining, power and roads. On the other hand, the private sector was strictly retained through a system of permit and license. The inflow of foreign capital was subject to various restrictions and regulations under which majority participation and control had to remain in the hands of Indian. All these restrictions discourage investment by private sector and also foreign investment into the country. Thus, there was a need to assess the economic policies in order to improve growth and efficiency. As a result, the government introduced new economic reforms or new economic policy in 1991. These reforms has promoted liberalization, privatization and globalization. Let us discuss the economic reforms. Economic reforms refers to necessary adjustments to external events. These includes policy measures such as reducing country spending to the level parallel to its income, reducing import restriction, eliminating export restriction, market-based structural change so that the economy become more efficient and flexible. Liberalization, privatization and globalization are the main features of the new economic policy. Liberalization. Liberalization is a policy regime which aims at ensuring greater freedom from all unnecessary controls and restrictions imposed by the government like permits, quantitative restrictions, quotas, licenses, etc. It involves reduction in government regulation of and state intervention and increase in the role of market forces. In a liberalized economy, all the major decisions are taken on the basis of market forces of demand and supply. Liberalization may take in any or all of the following forms. Abolition of restrictions on the movement of goods and services. Ensuring producers to fix prices of their goods and services. Allowing greater opportunities to private sector. Allowing freedom to producers on distribution of goods. Minimization in tax rates and control over economy. Privatization. Privatization is the process of transferring the ownership and or management of public enterprises to the private enterprises. It means introduction of private ownership, management and control in public sector enterprises. According to Barbara Lee and John Niles, privatization is the general process of involving the private sector in the ownership or operation of a state-owned enterprise. Through privatization, the role of private capital and enterprise in the functioning of an economy becomes greater. Privatization can take place in several forms or methods such as: first, denationalization. It involves complete sale of public enterprise to the private sector. Second, disinvestment. It involves sale of a part of equity holdings of public sector undertaking to private sector. Third, management contract. It involves transfer of management of public sector enterprises to private sector. Fourth, joint venture. It involves joint ownership by government and private sector in an enterprise. Fifth, leasing. It involves letting out of physical assets of public sector to private sector. Sixth, franchising. It involves providing the brand name and know-how of public sector to private sector. Next is globalization. Globalization means integration of different economies by reducing all restrictions on the movement of goods, services, technology, capital and labor between nations. Through globalization, economic interdependence between countries increases and markets become international. We shall now understand trends and issues of liberalization. Before 1991, various types of control had imposed by the government on Indian economy. For example, system of industrial licensing, price control on goods, control on foreign exchange, import license, control on investment by big business houses, etc. These controls had dampened the willingness of the entrepreneurs to set up new industries. These restrictions had given rise to several shortcomings such as corruption, inefficiency and undue delays. Therefore, economic reforms are necessary to reduce restrictions or controls imposed on the economy. Liberalization, privatization and globalization are the main instruments of economic reforms. The following trends and issues of liberalization may be observed. First, the approved FDI from July 1991 to April 1998 are Rs 1,60,255.44 crore, from which Rs 36,420.71 crore have already come in. There was a moderate increase in amount of FDI. It was Rs 534.11 crore in 1991, Rs 32071.72 crore in 1995 and Rs 131,385 crore in 2004-2005. The growth rate of GDP has increased from 0.9% in 1991-1992 to 4.3% in 1992-1993, 5.3% in 1994-1995 and 7.5% in 1996-1997. Second, due to liberalization, the industrial recession in India has been partially over, which began in 1991. The overall index of industrial production has increased by 2.3% in 1990-1993 and by 4% in 1993-1994. This is due to huge investment in modernization, expansion and setting up of many new schemes. Third, after liberalization, foreign entrepreneurs get attracted towards various items such as textile, telecommunication, gas, food processing, electricity generation, software, steel plants, automobiles, coal mining, road construction, etc. During 1994, the sector in which highest foreign investment made was fuel sector, Rs 2137.14 crore, followed by transport, Rs 1178.52 crore, chemicals excluding fertilizers, Rs 1122.12 crore and services, Rs 1956.76 crore. Fourth, there is a dramatic increase in exports by 29.91% from 1992-93 to 1993-94. It was increased by Rs 12924.55 crore between 1993-94 and 1994-95. There was an increase of 28.64% in 1995-96, 10.5% between 1995-96 and 1996-97 and 7.45% between 1996-97 and 1997-98. The balance of trade has been improving, but India's trade deficit has risen due to phenomenal increase in imports. Due to rise in foreign exchange reserves, the burden on balance of payments position has been greatly reduced. Fifth, although liberalization has raised the performance of Indian economy, but it has not been successful in minimizing regional imbalances in industrial development. New industries are being set up in developed states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. The approved foreign direct investment was higher in Maharashtra rupees 3744.71 crore, followed by West Bengal rupees 2844 crore. Sixth, in developing countries like India, cottage, small scale and medium industrial units play a significant role in generating employment opportunities and contributing production. But due to liberalization, these units would be swept up by MNCs with huge capital and advanced technological skill. Hence, some kind of protection must be provided to these units, such as providing technical access, infrastructural as well as export network, etc. to face competition from global units. Seventh, the foreign investors have a preference for portfolio investment rather than direct investment. Eighth, it is observed that imports are also increasing at a faster rate along with exports. This has created wide trade deficit and problem of balance of payment. Ninth, there is a fear of gradual handling over the whole economy to MNCs in the enthusiasm of liberalization and attracting more and more foreign exchange. 10th, along with liberalization, there is a need to take certain measures in order to control budget deficit. These measures includes inflation control measures, greater revenue generation, control of government expenditure and higher fund mobilization. We shall now understand the impact of liberalization. Positive impact. First, promotes efficiency. Liberalization helps in promoting the levels of industrial efficiency by removing unnecessary restrictions such as licensing, controls and regulation. Also, the economic agents have the freedom to take their own decisions on market forces of demand and supply. Second, increases industrial activity. Liberalization encourages existing economic entities to enlarge their scale of operations and amount of investment by removing government controls on business activities. It also boosts new entrepreneurial skills to enter the economic field. Third, competition. The policy of liberalization helps in increasing the number of entrepreneurs and business entities operating in the market. Due to competition, the productivity of the economy increases. Fourth, benefits to consumer. The consumers are also benefited as they get cheaper and more variety of goods and services. Fifth, increased foreign investment. The policy of liberalization permits a greater involvement of foreign investment. This in turn encourages the flow of foreign investment and thus industrial growth of the economy. Negative impact. First, regional imbalances. In the absence of restrictions, private enterprises would be set up in the developed regions. This might lead to unbalanced regional development in the economy. Second, ignores social welfare. The extent of market orientation increases due to liberalization. As a result, all decisions taken up by the industries shall be based largely on profit, thereby neglects social welfare. Third, concentration of economic power. Due to liberalization, all the limits on expansion of business come to an end. Thus, there is a possibility of concentration of economic power and wealth. Small producers can suffer due to endless growth of large-scale business firms. Let us understand the implications of liberalization of Indian economy. Before 1991, Government of India had imposed various constraints on both external as well as internal sectors of the economy like system of industrial licensing, import license, foreign exchange control, etc. These rigid control had given rise to inefficient operation, low rate of growth and uncompetitive price and quality of its output in the world economy. The economic reforms therefore aim at reducing all unnecessary restrictions imposed on the economy. In July 1991, liberalization was introduced in the following areas. First, industrial sector reforms. In 1991, the Government of India announced the new industrial policy. The main industrial reforms were A. Abolition of industrial licensing. Industrial licensing was abolished for all industrial projects except for the 5 industries. These were first cigarettes, second alcohol, third hazardous chemicals, fourth industrial explosives, fifth electronics, aerospace and defense equipments. Thus, industrial sector was entirely liberated from the licensing regime. B. Reduced role for the public sector. There were 17 industrial areas exclusively reserved for the public sector. However, this number has been reduced to 3, that is defense, equipments, rail, transport and atomic energy generation. C. Small scale enterprises. In order to modernize the small scale industries, the limit of investment has been increased to Rs 1 crore. Also, the production of 35 items has been reserved exclusively for these industries. D. Concessions in the MRTP Act. In respect of MRTP and dominant undertaking, the new policy abolished the threshold limit of the assets. These firms do not seek permission from the government for investing in the de-licensed industries. The MRTP Act has been accordingly revised. Second, financial sector reforms. Before 1991, banking institutions were regulated and controlled by RBI through high bank rate, high statutory liquid ratio and cash reserve ratio. In order to make financial sector more efficient and profitable, there was a need to bring reforms in this sector. Liberalization in financial sector implied A. The financial sector reforms aimed at reducing SLR from 38.5% to 25% and CRR from 15% to 10%. The main objective is to increase availability of funds with commercial banks to encourage more credit information in the country. B. The rate of interest which the central bank charges on the loans and advances to a commercial bank has been reduced. C. Indian financial markets are now open for FII such as merchant bankers, mutual funds and pension funds to invest. D. Private sector banks, Indian as well as foreign, were established. Limit of foreign investment in banks was raised to 50%. E. The interest rate should be determined by the free market forces of demand for and supply of money and not by RBI. Third, foreign exchange reforms. In order to solve the balance of payment problems in 1991, the rupee was devalued against foreign currencies. This encouraged exports and thus increased inflow of foreign exchange. Also, rupee value is determined on the basis of market forces of its demand and supply and freed from government control. After the liberalization policy of 1991, A. The limit of FDI was increased up to 51% of equity for capital intensive and ultra modern industries. This limit was raised up to 100% for those industries which operate under special economic zones SEZs. B. Automatic approval was granted to foreign technology agreements in high priority industries up to a lump sum payment of Rs 1 crore. Fourth, trade policy reforms. Before 1991, foreign trade was subjected to stringent quantitative restrictions like licenses and quotas. This reduced the efficiency and competitiveness of the domestic industries. Thus, In order to increase the international competitiveness of industrial production and foreign investment, the policy of liberalization of trade and investment was initiated in 1991. The main trade policy reforms are: A. Import licensing system has been abolished except in case of hazardous and environmentally sensitive industries. B. Quantitative restrictions on imports have removed. C. Tariff rates has been reduced. D. Export promotion structure has strengthened. Due to liberalization, the scope of private sector has expanded in India. The industrial efficiency and competitive strength have improved. It has also raised foreign investment in India. Thus, radical changes has taken place in India's business environment after liberalization. Next, we will talk about achievements. The following gains have achieved by India due to its liberalization policy in 1991. First, increase in industrial development. The area of operation of the private sector have expanded due to abolition of licensing requirements and opening up of area earlier reserved for public sector. As a result, industrial investment by the private sector has increased as more funds are flowing into various industrial activities. Second, rise in flow of foreign investment. I repeat, second, rise in inflow of foreign investment. The new economic policy permitted free flow of foreign investment in various economic sectors. Consequently, FDI has increased from $0.1 billion in 1991 to $43 billion in 2007-2008. However, due to recession of world economy in 2008-2009, it came down to $3.5 billion. Thereafter, it increased to $12.6 billion in 2010-2011. Third, increase in foreign exchange reserves. Due to liberalization, foreign exchange reserves has increased from $2 billion in March 1991 to $305 billion in May 2008. This helped the Indian economy to improve its credibility in the international market. Fourth, control of inflation. New economic policy has been able to control inflation. The index of wholesale prices, which stood at 13.7% in 1990-91, falls to 3.3% in 1999-2000. Inflation is around 5% during 2006-2007, which further rose to 8% in May 2008. After that, it became negative in June-July 2009. Fifth, imports. There was wide fluctuation in growth rate of imports after the implementation of new economic policy. The rate has decreased from 22% in 1990-91 to 11% in 1991-1992. However, it rose to 32.4% in 1992-1993. After that, it decreased to 20.8% in 2003-2004. Sixth, reduction in debt burden. Earlier, in order to meet the deficit of balance of payments, the government had to raise external commercial loans. Through liberalization, the inflow of foreign funds has increased, which in turn minimized the need of external commercial borrowings. Thus, debt burden of government has reduced. Seventh, integration of stock markets. The volatility of the stock market has increased due to inflow and outflow of foreign institutional investors. Now we will discuss upon the failures. The main failures of liberalization are as follows. First, neglect of agriculture. The significance of agriculture sector to the Indian economy has neglected by the new economic policy. During reform period, there was a decline in public investment in infrastructure of the agriculture sector such as roads, power, irrigation, etc. Also, the cost of production has increased due to reduction in fertilizer subsidy. As a result, the small and marginal farmers has been adversely affected. Moreover, Indian farmers have also suffered due to international competition because of change in certain policies like removal of minimum support price, decrease in import duties on agricultural products. Second, low industrial growth. The industrial growth rate was below expectations in the post-reform period. The average annual growth rate of industrial production was 7.8% during 1981-82 to 1991-92, which further reduced to 5.6% during 1992-93, 2001-2002. It was only 4.5% in 1997-1998 to 2001-2002. Due to integration of economy into world economy, domestic producers face competition from imports. This in turn unfavorably affected the local industries in India. Also, India faced various constraints on export to developed countries. Thus, the rate of industrial growth in post-reform period has remained low. Third, problem of unemployment. The growth rate of unemployment has not increased in spite of higher growth rate of GDP. The job creation capacity per unit of output moved down. This is due to downsizing of the workforce and increasing capital intensity per unit of output. Fourth, not much increase in tax revenues. The tax GDP ratio has not increased in spite of significant decrease in direct taxes and rationalization of indirect taxes. There was an expectation that lower income rates and corporate taxation would lead to increase in tax compliance, reduction in tax evasion and thus more revenue. But this has not materialized. Fifth, gross fiscal deficit. The gross fiscal deficit of the central government has decreased from 5.9% in 1990-91 to 3.3% in 2006-2007. However, it increased to 6.4% in 2009-2010, but it fell down to 5.1% in 2010-2011. Let us now summarize what we have discussed so far. Economic reforms refers to necessary structural adjustments to external events. Liberalization, privatization and globalization are the main features of the new economic policy. Liberalization means ensuring greater freedom from all unnecessary controls and restrictions imposed by the government like permits, quantitative restrictions, quotas, licenses, etc. Privatization is the process of transferring the ownership and or management of public enterprises to the private enterprises. Globalization means integration of different economies by reducing all restrictions on the movement of goods, services, technology, capital and labor between nations. Positive impact of liberalization involves promotes efficiency, increases industrial activity, increasing competition, benefits to consumer and increased foreign investment. Negative impact of liberalization involves create regional imbalances, ignores social welfare and concentration of economic power. Liberalization was introduced in different areas such as industrial sector reforms, financial sector reforms, foreign exchange reforms and trade policy reforms. Some gains have achieved by India due to its liberalization policy such as increase in industrial investment, inflow of foreign investment, increase in foreign exchange reserves, control of inflation, integration of stock markets, etc. The failure of liberalization policy of India includes neglect of agriculture, low industrial growth, problem of unemployment, not much increase in tax revenues, etc. Thank you.